Everything changed in a matter of seconds. The exact moment the Minnesota Vikings front office decided to bring in a former #1 overall pick, bringing him into the building to stand shoulder to shoulder with their newly drafted franchise savior, an invisible fuse was lit. Welcome to NFL Nexus. I'm your host, and today we are taking a microscopic, highly cinematic look at a situation that is rapidly approaching an absolute boiling point in Eagan, Minnesota. Before we get deep into this high-stakes explainer, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button on this explainer, and comment down below with what you think about this looming explosive battle. And look, if you want to support the deep, granular dives we do here on the channel, consider becoming a channel member. We'd absolutely love to have you. Now, let's set the scene. We are looking at the Minnesota Vikings quarterback pressure cooker. Picture this. It's late May at the TCO Performance Center. The intense heat of the afternoon sun is just beating down on the pristine practice field grass, radiating up through the cleats of 90 different men who are all fighting tooth and nail for a roster spot. But the real heat, the most suffocating, undeniable heat on that field, is brewing between two specific men fighting for one singular prize, the Week 1 starting quarterback job. Listen, this isn't just your standard, friendly off-season competition where everyone is smiling for the cameras. Not at all. It is a violent collision course. On one side, you have a seasoned veteran desperate for redemption. On the other, a highly touted rookie carrying the crushing, monumental weight of an entire franchise on his shoulders. In an environment like this, every single dropped pass is magnified. Every slightly off-target throw is scrutinized to the absolute maximum by the front office personnel who are pacing the sidelines, clipboards in hand. The tension isn't just visible, it's practically vibrating in the air.
It's just like two guys in a classroom. He sits on one side, and I sit on the other side. It's the coach's responsibility to teach us and coach us. Now, I really want you to let those words hang in the air for a second. That is a direct quote from J.J. McCarthy when he was asked by reporters about his current relationship with Kyler Murray. Just think about that. This is not the standard, meticulously PR-polished answer you usually hear in the National Football League. In May, what do you usually hear? You hear about brotherhood. You usually hear glowing quotes about mentorship, right? About veteran leadership graciously taking the young rookie under their wing to show them the ropes. But not here, not in Minnesota. McCarthy's words paint a chilly, incredibly distant picture. They are not hitting it off in the schoolyard. They aren't sharing notes over dinner. They are absolute adversaries occupying the exact same room, separated by this invisible, heavily fortified wall of pure ambition. The tension is incredibly real and is actively brewing long before the pads have even come on.
You really have to look at the sheer contrast of the archetypes we are dealing with here. The dichotomy is almost poetic, honestly. On one side, you have Kyler Murray. This is a 7-year NFL veteran, a former Heisman Trophy winner, a former #1 overall pick. We're talking about a 2-time Pro Bowler whose once electric career has been violently derailed by catastrophic knee injuries and brutal inconsistency. He is head coach Kevin O'Connell's latest and perhaps greatest reclamation project. And look, you remember what O'Connell managed to do with Sam Darnold 2 seasons ago, right? He shed Darnold's bust label entirely. He rebuilt his mechanics from the ground up. Murray is here in Minnesota seeking that exact same career CPR. He needs this. On the exact opposite side of the spectrum, you have J.J. McCarthy, the 10th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Michigan national champion who was drafted specifically to be the long-term franchise savior. He is supposed to be the golden child, the quarterback of the next decade for this organization. Yet, here we are. Both of these vastly different players, at completely opposite ends of their football lifespans, are staring down the exact same barrel, fighting for the exact same Week 1 starting job. It's truly fascinating. Now, to truly understand why this battle is so uniquely complex and why it's generating so much anxiety inside that building, we have to look directly at the money. $36.8 million. That is Kyler Murray's guaranteed salary for the upcoming season. But here is the massive, unprecedented catch that makes this whole situation so wild. The Arizona Cardinals are paying for almost all of it. For the Minnesota Vikings front office, acquiring Murray was a virtually free, astonishingly high-reward gamble. Think about the leverage here. The Vikings have absolutely zero financial obligation forcing them to put Murray on the field if he doesn't outright earn it in training camp. But conversely, they have every single incentive in the world to let him loose if he proves he can still play at that elusive Pro Bowl level. This unique financial reality turns the heat up on McCarthy to an unbearable degree. The team doesn't have to rush the rookie out onto the field just to justify a first-round draft pick. They literally have a $36 million mercenary, paid for by someone else's checkbook, ready to step in, take the brutal hits, and win football games right now. That is a terrifying prospect for a rookie trying to secure his spot. So why are both of these guys so intensely desperate to prove themselves on a random Wednesday in May? To answer that, we have to look at the hard data from their rocky 2023 campaigns. The numbers on this table tell a raw story of desperation. Look at Kyler Murray first. He only saw the field for a mere 5 games in his final tumultuous season in Arizona due to a lingering foot injury and the painful aftermath of his ACL tear. He threw for a meager 962 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. For a guy drafted first overall, for a guy who used to literally terrorize defenses with his legs, those are ghost-like numbers. He isn't just fighting for a starting job in Minnesota. He is fighting to prove his entire career isn't fading into obscurity. But then, look right below that at J.J. McCarthy's final collegiate year. He tallied 1,632 passing yards, but you have to look closer at the ratio. 11 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He threw more picks than scores. Let that sink in. Those aren't just bad numbers. They are flashing red sirens about his decision-making when the pocket collapses around him. He enters the National Football League with massive, glaring question marks surrounding his ability to read complex coverages and, most importantly, protect the football. So both men have colossal chips on their shoulders. Both men have their backs pressed firmly against the wall.
Let's move into part 1 of this explainer, the media scrum divide, facing the press.
Let's look at the aftermath of Wednesday's OTA to see exactly how this intense dynamic is playing out off the field. This was the very first time both players practiced in front of the voracious local and national media this offseason, and the way the press treated the veteran versus how they treated the rookie was a stark, almost uncomfortable contrast that speaks volumes about the ecosystem currently operating in Minnesota. Kyler Murray stepped up to the microphones first. The camera shutters are clicking wildly. And leaning casually on the podium, he played the role of the seasoned, entirely unbothered veteran flawlessly. When he was asked about McCarthy, Murray just relaxed his shoulders, offered a slight smile, and said, "Obviously, I know he's a younger guy, so any way I can help him, I'll give him any knowledge that he needs. Again, we're both competitors, and I know you know we both want what's best for the team." It was a perfectly standard, beautifully diplomatic answer. And why wouldn't it be? He's been here 100 times before. The media immediately accepted it, the tension dissipated, and they smoothly pivoted to asking Murray about his personal workout process, getting to know the city, and even his culinary acclimation to Minnesota. They treated him with the calm, measured respect afforded to a guy who has survived in the trenches of this league for 7 brutal years.
But the absolute second J.J. McCarthy stepped up to that exact same podium, the atmosphere in the room shifted entirely. 12. That is the number of rapid-fire, highly pointed questions McCarthy had to endure during a media scrum that only lasted between 5 and 8 minutes. And let me be perfectly clear with you, these were not softballs about his favorite restaurants in the Twin Cities. 12 relentless questions were entirely focused on the quarterback competition. 12 questions essentially asking a 21-year-old 10th overall pick if he is terrified of losing his job to a guy the team brought in off the scrap heap for free. If you watch the video of the scrum closely, McCarthy's body language told the entire story. His jaw was tight, his eyes darted around the room, his answers were heavily clipped. Normally an outgoing and highly charismatic presence, the rookie was curt, he was visibly peeved. He wasn't just annoyed by the repetitive nature of the questions, he seemed intensely frustrated that Murray was even in the building, casting a massive, unignorable shadow over what was supposed to be his undisputed development period.
This dynamic brilliantly illustrates a harsh, unforgiving reality of the NFL. The media spotlight burns infinitely hotter on the rookie. Murray's playing with house money here. Think about it. If he fails to win the job, if he gets cut in August, he simply goes down in the transaction wire as a reclamation project that just didn't pan out. He collects his checks from Arizona and goes home. But McCarthy? He was drafted 10th overall to be the singular savior of a franchise desperate for a Super Bowl run. If he can't even manage to beat out an injury-riddled, transient veteran in a training camp battle, the labels of bust won't just be whispered. They will be shouted through the halls of the TCO Performance Center before his rookie season even officially kicks off. The pressure of immense expectation is a suffocating weight, and you could physically see McCarthy carrying every single ounce of it at that podium.
Which brings us to part 2. Fire on the practice field, the May showdown.
Look, talk is cheap. Scrums and quotes fade into the background noise. The real truth in the National Football League is found entirely between the white lines. So let's shift our narrative from that air-conditioned press room directly out to the sweltering gridiron, where the actual talking happens. It's May. There are no pads, there's no live tackling allowed by the collective bargaining agreement, but make absolutely no mistake about it, these were real, highly competitive reps. Every dropback was scrutinized. Every single throw was a statement. J.J. McCarthy took the field first, lining up under center for the 7-on-7 drills, and if he was annoyed by that media interrogation just hours prior, he took every ounce of that frustration out on the football. He came out absolutely guns blazing. First rep, he took a sharp 3-step drop, hitched once, and launched a beautiful high-arcing deep ball perfectly in stride up the left sideline to a sprinting Jordan Addison. Second rep, he didn't panic when his first read was covered. He calmly progressed his eyes to the backside of the play and fired a laser beam connection to tight end Josh Oliver. Third rep, a high-velocity seam pass threaded right up the middle to Ty Felton, who had to go up and make a spectacular leaping catch. McCarthy finished his first batch of reps a flawless 4 for 4. The sheer zip on his line drive throws was undeniable, literally cutting right through the heady May air with an audible hiss. He was actively silencing the outside noise with raw, unadulterated arm talent, proving exactly why a front office staked their jobs on drafting him in the first round.
But Kyler Murray was not about to be upstaged by the new kid on the block. Taking the field moments later with the second-team offense, Murray calmly stepped into the huddle and delivered an immediate, flawless counterpunch of his own. He too started a perfect 4 for 4, but it looked entirely different from McCarthy's reps. He hit Miles Price and Bryson Nesbitt with surgical, hyper-efficient quick passes, getting the ball out of his hands in less than 2 seconds. Then, he went back-to-back, carving up the backup secondary for massive chunk plays to undrafted rookie Dylan Bell. The first was a deep crossing route delivered to the absolute perfect spot where only the receiver could make a play on it. The second was a violent dart ripped right over the middle of the defense, completely splitting 2 deep safeties. While McCarthy showcased pure brute force zip, Murray put on an absolute clinic displaying 7 years of hard-earned NFL experience. He showed he can still throw the 95-mile-per-hour fastball, sure, but more importantly, he showed he knows exactly when to change speeds. He showed elite touch. He demonstrated the rare ability to perfectly layer the football, dropping it softly over the outstretched arms of dropping linebackers, but well in front of closing safeties. It's a highly nuanced skill of anticipation and trajectory that the young, strong-arm McCarthy is still actively and sometimes painfully trying to develop.
The tension on the sideline continued to mount. The 7-on-7s were essentially a dead heat. Both men were dealing, moving the offense with rhythm and absolute confidence. But then, the whistle blew, and the drills escalated to full 11-on-11s, and that meant the introduction of defensive coordinator Brian Flores. Now, Brian Flores doesn't care if it's merely a May practice. He doesn't care if you're a highly drafted rookie trying to learn a complex playbook or a veteran trying to save your career. He unleashed his signature, wildly unforgiving, zero-coverage blitz packages. With a defensive line featuring incredibly hungry, physical players like Jalen Redmond and Levi Drake Rodriguez pinning their ears back, Flores dialed up the absolute maximum heat. He wanted to see which of these 2 quarterbacks would be the first to crack under the simulated violence of a collapsing pocket.
Notice how drastically differently both quarterbacks reacted when the carefully structured pocket completely collapsed around them. McCarthy took his first pressure rep. Flores immediately sent a disguised, unblocked blitzing safety flying right into the rookie's face off the edge. In a live game scenario, it's a devastating, bone-rattling sack. McCarthy survived the rep, but you could see the slight panic in his footwork. He frantically drifted backward, threw completely off his back foot, and managed to muscle a quick check down back across his body to TJ Hawkinson. It was chaotic, it was frantic. He survived the play, but it definitely wasn't pretty. Then Murray stepped up to the line of scrimmage. Flores brought the heat again, sending a complex overload blitz. The interior of the offensive line completely broke down, and Murray was technically sacked by the coach's quick whistle. But what he chose to do next left the reporters and front office staff completely stunned. Instead of instinctively checking down or throwing the ball away in frustration, Murray didn't panic. He subtly shifted his weight back in the rapidly collapsing pocket, reset his feet in a fraction of a second, and dropped an absolute picture-perfect deep ball directly into the bucket to Jordan Addison, sprinting down the right sideline. The coverage by defensive back James Pierre was actually incredibly tight. He was practically in Addison's hip pocket, but the throw trajectory was simply uncoverable. It was the defining play of the entire afternoon. It was a seasoned veteran proving that even in the absolute height of chaos, when everything breaks down around him, he can still conjure absolute magic.
And that brings us to the final part of our explainer. High stakes in Minnesota. The looming battle. So let's zoom out from this sweltering, hyper-competitive May afternoon and look at the massive, franchise-altering scale of what is truly happening in Minnesota right now. We have microscopically documented every single throw, every tense quote, every bit of body language, and every single ounce of tension. But we really have to ask ourselves what this truly means for the long-term future of this entire organization. Make no mistake, General Manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's legacy, head coach Kevin O'Connell's job security, Brian Flores' defensive schemes, the entire trajectory of the Minnesota Vikings, it all completely hinges on who emerges from this intense pressure cooker alive and victorious. Which brings us to the ultimate million-dollar question. Is this a real blood-and-guts quarterback competition, or is it just an orchestrated May mirage designed for the media? Are the Vikings intentionally elevating Kyler Murray's reps to artificially light a fire under J.J. McCarthy, desperately hoping the rookie rises to the occasion and seizes the job? Or did the coaching staff pop on the tape, see those 12 interceptions from McCarthy last year, watch him panic slightly against Flores' blitzes, and genuinely decide they simply cannot trust a 21-year-old with the keys to the Ferrari just yet? The stark difference in how these two men are treated by the press, how they carry themselves in the building, and how they physically throw the football suggests this is far, far more than just a passing off-season storyline to fill airtime. This is a bitter, brewing, high-stakes war for QB1.
But the truth is, the real answers, they won't come in May. They won't come while wearing shorts and practice jerseys in a highly controlled environment. The true, definitive answers will only arrive in late July and August. They will arrive when the summer heat peaks, when the pads finally come on, when the hitting goes fully live, and when Brian Flores' zero blitzes result in actual bodies violently hitting the turf. Until that brutal reality sets in, J.J. McCarthy and Kyler Murray will continue to sit on opposite sides of that metaphorical classroom, staring each other down across the facility, knowing with absolute certainty that only one of them will graduate to the starting role, and the other will be left holding a clipboard, watching their career trajectory drastically alter. This has been your NFL Nexus Deep Dive Explainer. I really hope this detailed cinematic breakdown helped you truly grasp the granular, high-stakes details of this brewing war in the NFC North. What do you think is going to happen when the pads finally come on? Let me know in the comments section below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and comment on what you thought. And please support the channel by becoming a channel member to help us continue producing these intense documentary-style breakdowns. Until next time, the clock is relentlessly ticking in Minnesota.